Hello and welcome. You're watching News9 Live. With the Congress looking to consolidate SC and OBC votes, it has reignited the issue of caste census. Senior Congress leader Siddaramaiah tweeted saying that the Congress is committed to increasing the reservation limit from the current 50% to 75%. Siddaramaiah also added that his party shall also increase the reservation for all castes based on their population. The tweet comes as the BJP tried to remove 4% reservation for the Muslims and distribute it equally amongst the Lingayats and the Vokkaligas. Rahul Gandhi has also pitched in for a caste-based reservation and so far has other opposition parties who have demanded for caste census. Now, as per existing instructions, reservation is provided to scheduled castes, that is SCs, scheduled tribes, that is STs, and other backward classes, which is OBCs, at the rate of 15%, 7.5% and 27% respectively in case of direct recruitment on all India basis by open competition. In direct recruitment on all India basis, other than by open competition, the percentage fixed is at 16.66% for SCs, 7.5% for STs and 25.84% for the OBCs. So what is this? Just a promise because the elections are knocking at the door? Just a promise to keep people assured that there will be affirmative action, although this may take years and years for any kind of law to be in place. Let's deep dive into this reservation brouhaha. First joining me, K.V. Dhananjay, who is advocate of Supreme Court, and also Sanket Yanagi, who is advocate of Supreme Court and is also a Congress leader. Welcome to both of you. Dhananjay, the thing is that the states have done it. We have several examples of states having done it. Remember reservation for the Marathas, and the Honorable Court rapped them on their knuckles and says, where are you getting your data from? We don't think this is going to be possible. So, Tamil Nadu has 69%, a lot of people can say so and so has, undivided Andhra also tried, etc., etc. But the point, Dhananjay, is the timing of it all. And also when you talk about reservation, you actually raise the hopes of people who may want reservation. Don't you think this is just a sop because of the elections and nothing else if you look at it today?
Well, I think the way to look at it is to look at it in isolation. If we were to say that, look, so many more governments on the EU election have done something like this, then we are nowhere. And therefore, we have to look at Karnataka in isolation for that matter. And we've got to see where Karnataka currently stands. Karnataka has already exceeded the 50% cap. And of course, the EWS reservation will certainly take reservation up by 10%. So Karnataka has already exceeded a 60% cap on reservation. And the Supreme Court always has been saying that you can exceed this cap only if there are extraordinary circumstances. And every government that exceeds this cap says that they have extraordinary circumstances. And nobody knows what these extraordinary circumstances are. I don't think Mr. Siddaramaiah is himself able to articulate what these extraordinary circumstances are. He's been a chief minister of Karnataka, and he was a chief minister for the full term of 5 years. He's expected to know that legally it would be almost impossible to, give effect to this election promise. But yet he tends to, he said what he has said with great fanfare. Now, the problem is this. I'm fairly certain that it would be nearly impossible to do anything more on the field of reservation. We would not be able to expand reservation because the court has time and again said that reservation, at this juncture can only be expanded if you have quantifiable data. Nobody has quantifiable data. There was caste census that was attempted in Karnataka, but was more or less given up because the government probably felt that, assuming that various insiders in the government saw the data and felt that the data would be damaging should it come out from a... So without a quantifiable data, the Honorable, ex-Chief Minister certainly knew that this is just a false election promise. But my worry is this. If this election promise is being seen by various other political parties across the country, and should they watch the outcome of the election, And apparently, at this point of time, the various polls are giving Congress party the edge. Now, if the Congress party turns out to have more number of seats this election,
Yeah.
then various other political parties will take a cue from this. And I'm so worried about what could be the future of this country. Notwithstanding that the 75% can simply not be given effect to at all, or even if given effect to, it will not have its day in, it will not be able to stand the scrutiny of the court. So I think we all have to be worried, and this is not just about some party making a false election promise, or for that matter, an exaggerated election promise. It's about where we see ourselves 10 or 15 years from now. If a country must, or if a state within a country must, in fact, want 75% reservation, it's fair to say that the state has practically failed in every respect. You will think of something as drastic as this if you are just coming out of 300 or 400 years of foreign subjugation.
Right.
We just finished 75 years of political independence, and this was the last thing that ought to have been promised. And it's upsetting. It's deeply upsetting, and of course, it ought to be condemned. I believe it has already been condemned widely, but then I will do my bit, which is to condemn it very severely.
Right. Sanket, let me get you in. Now, wherever there are cases where the court has, what Dhananjay was trying to say, and I started this conversation by saying pretty much, reservations for the Marathas, and the court said it violates the fundamental right of equality, and, it violates several principles. Mostly, the court also has asked several times over, whenever the states have raised the reservation issue, is that where are you getting data from? Do you have any data to substantiate your demand of wanting more reservation or not? You know it, you are a practicing lawyer. Dhananjay said something which I also want to know is, except for this being an election sop, Mr. Siddaramaiah has nowhere substantiated as to why he wants an increase in reservation in Karnataka.
Firstly, let us understand the reservation concept. There are two categories out of it. One that is reserved category, which is around 50-56%, which we have in the state of Karnataka now. The other one is unreserved, that's general category. What Mr. Siddaramaiah is trying to say is what Mr. Rahul Gandhi had promised on the basis of the caste-based reservation system, population-based reservation system. In a sense, even those who fall under the category of general category, those people would also be entitled to, there would be a separate class of citizens among the general category who would also be entitled for the reservation. So what Mr. Siddaramaiah had put forth is that those who are also eligible, who are also entitled to, who also have been deprived of the right to education or to employment, so on, and the benefits of the government as such, so are also entitled for the reservation, irrespective of the fact that they fall under the general category. So, what Mr. Siddaramaiah has said is a classification among the classified class, that is a general category, who would also be getting the benefit of the reservation. It is not that general categories' rights are being taken away. It is not that the reservation, by increase of it, would benefit only those who are not falling under the general category. That's a wrong conception. The point here which he has made, mostly he has not clarified it, is that the additional percentage of reservation would be for the benefit of the general class, of the general category. It is not that their share would be reduced. It is not that they would be deprived of the benefit. It is not that they would be denied of the benefit. It is in addition to what has been given to the other classes, they would also be entitled to.
No, Sanket, I get that. I get that. I get that. There will be an increase, right? There are two things. I asked you a question and you please answer, is that you spoke about general category. You said that it's not going to, we are going to cut into their pie. It is just people, other people who need reservation, that they shall be granted. But the point is, on what basis, Sanket? What is the basis? For instance, when EWS happened, Stalin, who was the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, several experts also said, what is this? Reservation based on poverty. Now tomorrow it's not on caste. So where does the entire affirmative action thesis go? I mean, you just throw, this will not stop then. The first of all, I am not saying there should not be reservation. The fathers of this, I mean, those who sat and drew the constitution were very clear that decades long of, deprivation, you have to bring the marginalized and the unempowered into the ambit of being empowered. Yes, absolutely. But the point is, during election time, he gets up and he says from 50 to 75 as if it's the price of vegetables. It will take that much time, at least that much time. You never know, the courts may just strike it down. There doesn't seem to be any theory or logic to it, Sanket. That is what is my question.
No, it is not being advocated in 2023 elections. It is being canvassed since from 2019, in fact.
Arey, come on, your Congress party was the first one which never brought out the caste census, Sanket. You know that I shoot from the hip. This whole caste census, do it.
One by one.
Congress, starting with Nehru, Mrs. Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi called Mandal Commission a can of worms. Siddaramaiah also did not. Everything was discussed in Udaipur, but no one brought it forth. But let's focus on this. Let's just focus on this, Sanket, and I'll be, I'm just asking you, Sanket. Suppose I want reservation. You announce it. It is a kind of cheating, no, that during elections you say something. I don't expect the Congress party to do something like this, is all I'm saying. Every party does this during the elections. Let me come back to you. Dhananjay is waiting also. Dhananjay, the thing is that this whole thing emanated from this entire speech that Rahul Gandhi made. I think it was in Kolar, if I am not wrong. Then subsequently everyone jumped into it. Mr. Siddaramaiah jumped into it, and also Mr. Kharge, he jumped into it and said there should be. But historically, let me tell you, and I can prove it, that the Congress party has been very reluctant to actually conduct the caste census. Even if when they have conducted it, they have not released it. Every party is the same. Let's come back to this. Now, to say from 50 to 75, people will, show me Tamil Nadu's example, where it is 69% reservation, including 18% for scheduled caste, 1 for scheduled tribes category, 20 for MBC, and 30% for other backward castes, right? They will throw it at me, sure. But the point is that all these take years, number one. Number two, it is not as if it's a slot machine. The courts can also as well say, no, not possible, because the honorable courts have time and time again said there has to proper numbers, empirical evidence. So don't you think this whole announcement is done in a very hurried fashion, Dhananjay?
Very true. I don't really believe Mr. Siddaramaiah has a cogent plan of action for this. And so they are doing it from a position of strength. I think the Congress party believes that it's on its course to victory. And if you also look at one aspect, which is from 1984, no political party has been able to retain power in Karnataka after the next, assembly election. So statistically, the Congress party seems to think that they are in fact already on an advantage, and they want to add to that by this. But the problem is they don't seem to be realizing the kind of damage this does. Right now, it's entirely possible that those who are reading about this tweet on social media, some of them are really going to feel a great deal of fear for what the future might hold in this country. And some of them might start looking at what are the opportunities for immigration, or perhaps go out of the state. But I'm worried more about what insidious the consequences this will give rise to should Congress do very well in this election. So I have to unfortunately now hope that the Congress does not do well. And kindly see, where, I thought I was politically, I had no preference, but now I have to say this openly. I think this is a horrible thing for the Congress to have done. They ought not to have done this. They should have, done something else to secure more votes. They should never have done this. This is what I would like to say. And I heard Mr. Sanket Yanagi, and he's a brilliant lawyer. So perhaps he knows that this is indefensible. So he was saying something else other than to. And that he is again a man of conscience, and so I believe that notwithstanding whatever he says on air, deep down he too is concerned about what this means for the future of this state, and also what this also means for the future of this country.
Right, very
And
well said.
quantifiable data is, of course, absolutely essential, which the governments don't have. And courts now, as you've been watching, the Supreme Court is spending more time on constitution benches. So it's entirely possible that in the next 9 months, a lot of cases in the Supreme Court that are pending on the issue of reservation, including the Tamil Nadu case of having breached 50%, but
Yeah,
having gone into the night schedule,
yeah,
all of these cases will be resolved in the next 9 months. And it's possible that by January, December this year, or maybe January next year,
right.
we'll have this firm message coming from the Supreme Court that look, you won't be able to do any of these things.
Right. Let me go to Sanket. Sanket, some very good words said by your colleague there. I mean, if I may say, I'm sure as lawyers you've met often. But, I want to ask you something, is that if you look at, a recent report which was released, Niti Aayog and some other organizations had released it. According to them, Sanket, the thing is that Karnataka has been doing very badly on several socio-cultural parameters. Yes, their GDP has increased, which is great news. But apart from that, if you talk about health, you talk about sanitation, about how many women get married before 18, about whether any woman has ever stepped into a school or not, wasted children, children malnourished, children with stunted growth. On every parameter, Karnataka has done very badly. So I think, Dhananjay had brought this up when he first started this conversation, Sanket. Don't you think we need to repair all this before we straight away jump into reservation? As it the general well-being of any state, Sanket Yanagi.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. Though it has been a political issue or the political part of the debate, but I would say practicability also to be looked into. And I wish and hope that the party would certainly consider this aspect, keeping that in mind, it would take the further steps. There are other issues as well which have the prominence or the preference over this subject matter. And this cannot be done abruptly. This cannot be done in a haste. This requires a lot of application of mind. This also requires a lot of balancing activity by the government, not just balancing of the reservation or balancing of the benefit to be given under the reservation. But the deprivation is one aspect which cannot be compromised. And we will look into every nook and corner and see that it should be properly balanced. And a balance is something which only the Congress can do it, which has done so far
Yeah.
from the date of the independence. And we cannot take certain steps which are very crucial, very delicate, and very dangerous in a case not taken proper care and caution.
Right.
So, keeping everything in mind, I'm hopeful that Congress will certainly look into this issue in a very serious manner so that none can be deprived of the benefit, and also no one should have an excess benefit out of it.
Right.
And each one should be happy.
Sanket, I just want you to kind of, perhaps throw some light on if reservation has to be given in Karnataka and breach the 50% cap, as it were. Karnataka needs it, truly. Every state will stand up and say we need it also. Remember undivided Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh. But do you think that what Siddaramaiah ji has said, you ratify that, but then can you validate that as to where do you think Karnataka requires more reservations, Sanket?
So, firstly, let me understand there has no precedent of this nature. But however, there is nothing wrong in testing and giving a more, it's a new dimension to the policy of the reservation in order to reach everyone and see that everyone should get the benefit out of it. And parallelly, so if this exercise ends up with some good results, good development, good benefit to the people, it can be adopted by the other governments, in as much as it could also be appreciated by the Supreme Court, provided it is a balancing act in as much as an act of the development or giving an employment or the benefits to the others who have been deprived of the benefits so far. But the question is, just because it is newly introduced or newly proposed, let us not lose the hope that it will not yield any result, or let us not lose the hope that it will not benefit others. Let us be optimistic and positive to see some new experiments coming out day by day from the Congress to reach out more and to see that the people should grow out of the state where they are in now.
You know,
Yes.
Sanket, today you've spoken more like a politician, and I like you're an old friend. You know, I like it when you wear the lawyer's hat because you are so sharp then that nothing will go past your eye and you will say this is right and this is wrong, and you really never have cared about which side you belong to. But today, you're being very cautious. I agree with Dhananjay. I'm sorry, despite being the anchor of this show, somewhere you don't sound and seem convinced, and my apologies if I'm really, you know, overreaching myself and saying something which you may consider offensive. But today, Sanket, things are not looking as good as they always do with you, you know. Let me go back to Dhananjay. Dhananjay, tell me something, that how important do you think a caste census is when it comes to affirmative action? That is my first question. And how important is empirical data when it comes for any government to even consider reservation? In the case of Karnataka, from 50 to 75, that kind of a lag that is there, don't you think that they need to sit and assess why, where, what?
Very true. Mr. HMCRY is one of the foremost constitutional scholars that we have in this country. He's devoted a large number of pages to criticize the Indra Sani judgment of not the Indra Sani, the other judgment of the Supreme Court on reservation, by saying that the court should have insisted on quantifiable data. And by not insisting on quantifiable data, they are simply shooting in the dark. So it's fair to say that in the next 6 or 9 months, it's entirely possible that the Supreme Court might say that there should be a fresh and a new and a dependable, reliable survey of the castes, and then to determine what extent of backwardness they suffer. And right now we have this notion of creamy layer, which, by the way, nobody follows. The central government has this rule for creamy layer that runs into a few dozen pages. Now, who's going to read and understand all of that? And states have very, very malleable notion of a creamy layer. So at this point of time, what we are doing is simply shooting in the dark, and the government says, or that it believes that somebody was backward socially and educationally in 1931, but at this point of time they don't have any data to find out if that's still the case. So I think the Supreme Court and the various high courts will have to come down heavily on the governments that insist on reservation without quantifiable data, because at this point of time, as the law stands, the Supreme Court has made it very clear that when it comes to reservation for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, the government don't have to justify it on the basis of quantifiable data, because the reservation given to those categories apparently is a reservation that in fact precedes the Constitution of India, and that reservation rests on the notion of ancient repression, and therefore even if they do advance, the courts have said that we will not insist on quantifiable data as far as that, issue is concerned. But see the irony here. At the inception, when the Constitution was introduced in this country, that's on the 26th of January 1950, the reservation was permitted only for those two classes of citizens, that is the
True.
scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes.
Yes.
It's only later on that we evolved this new concept of reservation for the OBC, other backward classes, other socially and educationally backward classes, class of citizens. Yet all the noise that you see in this country today over reservation, 99% of that noise is on the OBC. And this tells us that we have seriously misdirected ourselves since independence. At the time of the draft of the Constitution, it was not even in anyone's contemplation that 75 years afterwards, we will be fighting over how much more reservation to give, not to the scheduled castes or to the scheduled tribes, but to the OBCs. So I think we have misdirected ourselves, and at some level, the blame also might have to be shared by the Supreme Court, because anytime they would say something on the aspect of reservation, they would witness the parliament going out and then overcoming that with some
Right.
amendment to the constitution, but then they don't deal with it expeditiously. And then that, like in this very discussion, we've spoken so much about what Tamil Nadu did. And I'm very sure if Mr. Siddaramaiah were to be confronted by any press person, the first example he would take is of Tamil Nadu and say that Tamil Nadu has had more than 50% reservation for a very long time.
That's
so why
true.
should we not do the same?
Yeah.
Tamil Nadu's reservation is a matter that is pending in the Supreme Court, and it will be decided, in my view, in the next 6 to 9 months, because the current Chief Justice is taking a great deal of priority on those aspects. So it's my firm belief that in the 6 to 9 months, we will have so much of clarity in this country, clarity to the point that Mr. Siddaramaiah's counterparts in the next elections would not even feel the freedom to make such announcements.
Right. Now, so you clearly, I mean, I don't have to make you say this, Dhananjay, but you think that it is clearly politically motivated what Siddaramaiah ji said. Like you say that his counterparts may not even feel it befitting to talk about reservation if ever going to elections in the we do not know who they are going to be. But I get your point. Let me go to Sanket and get his closing remarks. Sanket, you still think that this is not politically motivated, that this is not focused at the election, Sanket, so, and there is more to it than meets the eye, what Siddaramaiah ji said?
It is difficult to say anything said by the politicians either before election or after the election is not politically motivated. It will have political repercussions and ramifications, and it will have certainly the political benefit, and in as much as the benefit to the society. Some do it only for the benefit of the political party, but some do it parallelly for the benefit of the society, and this could be one among them. Honestly speaking, though I have limited point to say or to convey at this point of time, but nothing wrong in experimenting with certain benefits which could be given at large. And that is
Right.
what, keeping that in mind, that everyone should develop and everyone should have the benefit of the reservation, including those who fall under the category of
Yeah, I mean that's being very politically correct, but it's very obvious that whatever Siddaramaiah ji said, this is going to take a long time. It may not happen. It may happen. Look at the order. I'm saying it may not happen. It may happen. And like Dhananjay said, a lot of reservation is still pending before the apex court, and one doesn't know what the future is going to be. So as of now, it seems very clearly that Siddaramaiah has used the quota ploy only and only for the impending elections in Karnataka. Thank you so much, Sanket and Dhananjay, for joining me on the show. Thank you indeed. We're all